Spice World is a 1997 British musical comedy film. Would you call this a comedy? Okay. It is a British musical comedy film directed by Bob Spears, who should have one thrown through him, and written by Kim Fuller, who is full of ish. The film stars Spice Girls Mel B, Emma Button, Melanie C, Jerry Halliwell, and Victoria Beckham, that's her name, playing themselves in a fictional narrative. The plot follows the group as they prepare for a major concert in London's Royal Albert Hall, intercede by dream sequences, flashbacks, and humorous asides. This movie sucks. If you watched Cool as Ice and thought Cool as Ice was the worst movie ever to star a pop idol, you ain't seen nothing, man. Spice World makes Cool as Ice look like a fucking masterpiece. I watched a review of this by the Nostalgia Critic, I think, a couple of years ago. And within 15 minutes, he covered every single plot point to the point where I saw this movie for the first time this week and felt like I've watched it already. And so that tells me there's 15 minutes of story. I never really found these girls to be really super attractive. I get why some people do, and nowadays I guess like some of them they held up better than others. But still, I never really got into the Spice Girls. My sister was into them. I hated it, and I hated this movie. I watched it. It was garbage. I forced myself through it. From what I could pick up, the story was they're trying to make it to the Prince Albert Hall or whatever it's called, and a newspaper writer, in order to make a story out of it, decides that he's gonna try to make it so they don't make it to the show, so he can report that the Spice Girls didn't make it to this concert, and that's supposed to sell newspapers. Like, I know they were a big deal, but I don't remember, like, a lot of teeny boppers going out to go get, like, the New York Times, and I don't think they cared enough to go get a newspaper. Fuck.
I'm loving you bringing that up. Okay. Watching this movie, it's bad.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
really bad,
It's a bad film.
but I can't get myself to hate it, and that's the weird thing.
Oh,
I don't know why. For me, I'm never gonna watch it again,
don't
but
blame you, so I wouldn't watch it either.
I don't regret watching it because I did find enjoyment in it in a way. Here's what it does that's good, because everyone's gonna talk about, "Oh, what this movie does bad." Here's what it does that's good.
Okay, what does it do good, Mike? What's its redeeming qualities?
So, you've got a group that capitalizes on characterization. There's no way you can tell me that somebody is that quote unquote sporty, that their life is so devoted to sports, but yet they sing. There's no way you can tell me someone's that fashion buried, but yet they still sing. It doesn't happen. They knew how to characterize themselves. And that's what they do good in the movie is they stick to that character. They've been doing this.
Yeah.
This is how they get big, and they stick to the character, and the writers knew how to stick them to that character.
I agree with that 100%. I've seen some of these movies where let's take Cool as Ice, for instance, because we reviewed that. He is not Vanilla Ice in that movie, even though he probably is acting a lot like Vanilla Ice, he's not Vanilla Ice in the movie. So, and they do this a lot where they have these pop stars, and I'm calling them pop stars for lack of a better term. They have the pop stars come in and they play these movie parts, and they try to make them actors. Here, they're like, "Girls, just be yourselves, but turn it up to 10." Yeah, that's what they did. They turned it all up to 10.
And that's the problem is that's why I can't hate it, is because of that, it actually made me giggle in parts. It didn't make me, like, laugh out loud, but a prime example of this, and you can't tell me this didn't hit you. The scene where they went to the dance instructor, and they all came out in their army gear, and then Posh came out.
Oh, yes.
And he's in that really short army dress that, you see you're always having to pull down. And they're going through the obstacle course, and you get to that point where they have to get on the ground and crawl, and you can just see she nails her character so well. She has that look of disgust, like, there is no way I'm gonna do this. And after that, she just walks around every single obstacle and just keeps going. It's well done to where it actually makes you giggle at the scene.
My favorite scene in the movie, and this is completely as a guy, my favorite scene in the movie is when they're doing the dress up and one of them dresses up like Wonder Woman and her bazungas are just boom. And I'm like, okay, this is the one good part of the movie.
Mm. There's actually and something really shocked me in this movie. There was a scene that I was not really ready for what they were going to say. It was a part where they were in their bus with their friend who went into labor, and one of them, I think that was Ginger, was like, okay, because she's like the know-it-all one. She's like, okay, I gotta go over the steps to how to handle this. Step one, keep your legs closed. And then Scary all of a sudden is like, she should have done that 9 months ago. I couldn't believe she said that because I'm thinking the Spice Girls are supposed to be these innocent, pure girls.
It's
But that just
so
that
wasn't the pregnancy thing, wasn't that just a way for them to be almost late for this concert? Like, wasn't that like yeah, that's, like, the only reason that's really in there. Can we talk about some of these guest stars? 'Cause I got a whole list.
that's yeah, where I wanted to go next. And then I want to talk about the plot. I'm surprised with some of those guest stars. There's some big names in there.
We have Richard E. Grant, I'm not really sure who he is. Alan Cummings, I know who he is. George Wendt, he's Norm from Cheers. Claire Rushborough, not really sure who she is. Mark McKinney, he's from SNL. And Sir Roger Moore.
And there's another one too. Like I said before, if you can't afford Michael Caine, and if you can't afford John Cleese, you get Stephen Fry. And what do? They got Stephen Fry.
Oh yeah, I remember him in there now. Yep, they had Steven. Wasn't he like the newspaper guy?
He was a judge.
Oh, he was a judge. Okay, so
But
this shows how much of an impression he makes.
yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. On its release, Spice World received primarily negative reviews, but achieved commercial success. Of course, it's the freaking Spice Girls in a movie.
Yeah.
Every teenage boy at the time wanted to go see this because there's 5 of them. One of them's hot to you.
Mm.
One of them is at least hot to you. That's why there's 5 of them. They did this. It's the same formula they use in K-pop. They have 4 or 5 girls, each one slightly different. So you go and say, "Oh, she's my favorite because," fill in the blank.
And that's it. K-pop, J-pop, they stick to this routine that probably goes back to, I'd probably say, New Kids on the Block, where they have to have a personality for each person. They really didn't have, I can't think of a time they had it. The closest would be like Village People, but I think they were just in costume and not acting the part that they were. But
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it wasn't really done, before. Because even if you look at, like, the 4 Tops or, back then when, like, the closest that, like, they had to a pop group back in the day, they never had, like or the Jackson 5, other than the fact that Michael was the youngest, it wasn't like, "Well, here's, Jermaine, and he likes basketball, and here's the other brother, and he's into movies," They never did anything like that.
K-pop and J-pop are doing it, but the problem is I don't think they did it as well as the Spice Girls were able to do it.
Yeah, yeah, this is almost like it's an archetype of how to do it, and then because like, British, I guess I mean, yeah, since we're saying, like, since the, New Kids on the Block, like, all these different groups for years have been doing it, and then Spice Girls hit something with it, where they finally got it, like, "This is the formula, this is how you do it," and now everybody's been doing that formula to death for the last when did this movie come out? Since the night.
He's maybe something, or I don't know.
And it makes him I tell you what, it makes money. I went to the K-pop craze, you know that, and, like, I always had, like, that I always looked for, like, the one girl of a certain type in each group, and she would always become my favorite, and that was back then too, the same thing. You'd like, well, if you're really into sporty girls, then you're gonna wanna go with Sporty Spice. If you
Yeah, she has a great birthday, Sporty Spice.
When's your birthday? Same as yours?
She I have a birthday. My birthday, I think, is shared by, let me see, Rob Zombie, Howard Stern, Rush Limbaugh, Oliver Platt. None of those matter. It's also shared with Sporty Spice. That's awesome.
Oh, your birthday is, like, right before mine then, because my birthday is, like oh, I think we've talked about this. I mean, I think my birthday is, like, a week later, not even, so I share a birthday with I forget who now. One of the members of 21, I remember that.
Mm.
But yeah, it's, this movie go ahead, you had more you wanted to say.
Yeah, jumping into the guest characters though, I think everything that the Spice Girls do well with their characters, all these guest characters they brought in, they don't know what they're doing. Like Roger Moore was awful. He was still stuck in that James Bond, you know, type of character that he did in I don't remember what the other movie was where he had, I think it was Cannonball Run or something, where he was playing James Bond again. And I mean, George Wendt and Mark McKinney did the best that they could as a duo, but all these guest actors were just flat. It was like The Grudge again, where you have what's the dude that Bill Paxton? No,
Yeah,
Bill Pull. Which one is it? Bill Pullman?
Pullman or Paxton. Well, I think
Yeah,
Pullman.
Bill Pullman.
Yeah,
It's got to be Pullman, where his character is just completely like he doesn't want to be there.
yeah.
And that's what's happening in Spice World. And what it causes is it causes this rift in the movie where I feel like I'm watching three movies at once. I'm watching this path where it's Roger Moore trying to sabotage a group to make them bigger. Then you've got the whatever was going on with the newscaster trying to get the have that evil person take pictures, and then you've got the George Wendt and Mark McKinney trying to pitch a movie, and they feel like they're wanting to be connected, but they never make that connection solid. So it's just that's what hurts the movie the most. It doesn't have a direction because it's trying to take three directions at once, and none of them are going anywhere.
You know what they should have done? I'm actually just looking it up now to make sure I'm making a good comparison here. They should have remade A Hard Day's Night.
Hard Day's Night.
That was a Beatles movie from 1964 where it was a musical comedy
Mhm.
that shows 36 hours of the life of the Beatles, but all it was just them 36 hours of their life on their way to a show, just like the Spice Girls, where they get into, like, they see them at the airport and the people all going nuts chasing after them, and they're running as the girls are chasing after them. That's if you've ever seen that epic scene, or that classic scene from movies of the Fab Four getting chased by all these girls, that's the movie it's from. It's from A Hard Day's Night.
Well, I was kind of done recently with Spinal Tap at that time.
Yeah, but you might as well. I mean,
Yeah.
because like it's because they're kind of trying to do that with this, but it's like they weigh in with these guest stars, and it's like Roger Moore was the only one I kind of got like a rise out of. I'm like, oh, cool, they got Roger Moore, but it's like, dude, you got Norm from Cheers,
Yeah.
really? I mean, geez, you can get Shelley Long. Like, what's the
Another problem with the movie that I'm gonna throw out there is because it's English, I don't know what half the stuff they were saying, what they're saying.
It's very British. Yeah. And you kind of expect that being it's a British group, it's a
Yeah.
British movie, but yeah, it's like I think even when my sister watched it when she was a kid, she had trouble, like, understanding some of the jokes because it was like 'cause my sister had the videotape. She was, like, totally into the Spice Girls. Like, the get that hit her, 97, I was 17, she was 7. So she was just, like, starting to get into that where I was, like, into wrestling and, you know, I think I was, like, starting to drink and smoke cigarettes and stuff like that. And, to me, like, yeah, I literally would walk at the Spice Girls, and I'm like, "I have no interest in their music. Which one of these girls do I wanna fuck?" None of them? Okay, well, never mind. Pass. Who's this Britney girl? And that her, I used to borrow my sister's tape just so I could look at the pictures and the tape thing, but so
I know anymore.
the Jade card, that's what it's called. The Jade card for the tape was really nice.
Don't want to know anymore.
Do we wanna talk any more about this? Do you have more?
I don't really have any more to say except for I think it gets a bad rap, but I think it gets a bad rap because it deserves a bad rap. Uh, uh, at the same time, I don't think it deserves a bad rap. I know that's confusing to say, but that's the best way I could say it.
What you're saying is that you do know that this is a bad movie, but there's a certain part of it that you kinda like.
Exactly. Well, I know it's a bad movie. I know watching it's a bad movie, but I can't hate it because it's a bad movie, but it does things good.
Do you think that they took this seriously, or did they know when they were making it that this was gonna be shit?
I think they knew. I think they absolutely knew. I think they're
I
crap.
think everybody in there is just there to get a paycheck. This is just
Exactly.
yeah, that's what it felt like to me too. Like, everybody in this, they're here to get paid. That's all
They're just capitalizing on the success of the band at that time.
yeah, this movie's a real big "fuck you, pay me." That's what this movie is. Yeah.
And that's why you can tell in the story, there's just no direction to the three stories that are going on in the movie because they didn't care because they wanted to check.
Yep.
But the problem is the Spice Girls. actually make it somewhat worth watching.
They seem to be the only ones actually in the movie who seem to be trying, and I think it's the whole
Exactly.
thing that they kinda see this is like, "This is our chance to make a big time movie," and the rest of the people in the movie are like, "This is the time for us to get an easy payday."
Yeah. I often wonder if, like, the Spice Girls bus, if what we were looking at inside the Spice Girls bus was actually the bus, where, like, the where Baby had the swing hanging, or if that was just a movie set that was made to be the bus.
How big was it, dude? What do you think they're driving around in, the TARDIS? The thing was gigantic on the inside. Do you know? You know what the TARDIS is, right?
That's a boat from something rather.
That's Doctor Who's spaceship, and
Space
what the TARDIS is, it looks like a phone booth, but when you go in it, the inside is gigantic.
Okay. I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what they were doing. They were doing the TARDIS effect, where the bus, it was way bigger inside the bus. Inside of the bus looked like the inside of a house. So I'm like, "Oh, it's the TARDIS bus." So I wish somebody would have made a reference to the TARDIS or something. 'Cause at least that's British as well. That would have been a nice tie-in to Doctor Who fans. But um, yeah, this movie, I don't recommend watching it. I really, really don't. Um,
I I recommend watching it knowing that it's gonna be unenjoyable in a way, but watching it for how good the bad plays himself.
I mean, if you're looking at it, to see what it was like, because it does there are scenes that do show the Spice Girls phenomenon and how big it was and how, like, they couldn't even walk outside without people going absolutely nuts for them, and it's just these 5 girls who are decent looking. You know their story, right? Have you ever actually heard their real story? 'Cause I actually do know it.
No, I haven't.
Okay, so they were hired to be a group, and the the contract didn't work out. They were part of this group, and the people who hired them, like, "This isn't working. It's just isn't working." But while they were together, the girls all hit it off with each other, and this all that those songs about them being friends, that's not all bullshit. They actually were friends, and they was like, "Well, we all got let go, but I think we have something here." And they decided to stick it out, and they actually found somebody else to, set them up for a contract, and so that's actually how they became a group.
Gotcha.
And I find that, and the person who found them is the host of American Idol. That's Simon Cowell. He was the one who discovered them, yeah, and he discovered them after they've already been rejected by another agency because in the other agency, what they screwed up on is they didn't sign them to non-compete clauses, is I think what it was, which is now something that that company, I'm sure, now does. But yeah, they were able to, take the training that they got from this other company, transfer it over to making a whole new group under Simon Cowell, becoming the Spice Girls, and here we are almost 20 years later talking about this horrible. Is it 20 years or 30 years? It's 30 years later, almost 30 years later, talking about this horrible movie. God, I'm so old.
So at this point then, I think we talked about this enough, so we're gonna move to the next one, but before I do, before we move to the next one, I think it's worth mentioning because this is a good tie-in, that there was evidently one Spice Girl that got thrown out of the group. I don't know if you heard about this, which was Ginger. Do you know why?
Why?
She posed in Playboy.
Oh, yeah.